As we continue to follow the fallout of the Buffalo Catholic Diocese, we find ourselves in the unusual position of telling the story of one of our own. Over the last 6 years, we have brought you many stories about sexual abuse in the Catholic Diocese of Buffalo. But
Two on Your Side's Pete Gallivan, our Daybreak co-anchor, has never read those stories when they appear on your screen. And that's because when Pete was an 11-year-old altar server, he says he was abused by a Monsignor in Buffalo that he trusted.
And until recently, he never told anyone about his claim of abuse. But his lawsuit is one of more than a dozen test cases expected to move forward if a judge lifts a stay on the lawsuits to move them ahead in state court.
And that means Pete's name is likely to become public in the process. So he wants to explain his story before someone else does. Tonight, he's breaking nearly 5 decades of silence as he tells his story to Channel 2 investigative reporters Charlie Specht and Sean Mickey.
And a warning tonight, this story includes descriptions of sexual abuse.
It was a typical upbringing on Mariner Street in Buffalo's Allentown neighborhood in the 1970s. Peter Gallivan was raised the youngest of 3 kids in a Catholic family. He'd attend Immaculate Conception Church and School on Edward Street, proudly serving as an altar boy for Monsignor Michael Harrington.
It's seen better days for sure.
I met with Pete outside of the now shuttered church as he recalled some of his childhood memories.
This was a very close-knit small Catholic community in the middle of Allentown.
But it's what he says happened during a pilgrimage to Montreal, Canada in 1977, a trip he received for being Altar Boy of the Year, that would change Pete's life.
Most of the memories are kind of not really there anymore. I woke up one night and my pajamas were wet. And then I opened my eyes and Monsignor was right by the bedside. Now I'm confused at that point. I'm like, did I wet the bed? And he immediately said, come on, we better get you cleaned up. And at that point I'm thinking, okay, I'll go into the bathroom and he insisted on bathing me.
Pete's story is similar to those of more than a dozen men who filed lawsuits here in state court. They describe Harrington as a calculating predator who, when they were 10 years old, would force them to drink an unknown liquid out of a flask. The boys would pass out and regain consciousness, feeling they had been violated.
I'm wondering what was in that flask. You know, here's a man that I looked up to, trusted. He was a pillar of the church, had all the faith and respect. What am I going to think?
It's a secret he kept for over 40 years, until one evening at home watching Two on Your Side's coverage of the crisis in the Buffalo Diocese.
And my wife looks over at me and she says, what's wrong? And I didn't even realize it, but I was tearing up. And for the first time in my life, I just looked at her and I said, that happened to me. And she said, what? And I just, 4 decades, the floodgates just opened.
Abuse survivor Angelo Urvalina also says Harrington abused him on a trip to New York City. He told the Buffalo News that when he reported the abuse to former Bishop James McNulty, the bishop handed him a $5 bill and told him he would take care of it. But Harrington remained in ministry for another 2 decades.
That was 1965. That was the year I was born. That they knew, that the bishop himself knew about this.
The Diocese of Buffalo acknowledges that Harrington, who died in 1989, likely abused children, including him on its list of diocesan priests with substantiated claims of abuse. Pete's lawsuit, AB 136 Doe versus the Diocese of Buffalo, is expected to be one of the first to move forward if a bankruptcy judge unlocks a dozen suits that were stayed. In a written statement, diocesan spokesman Joe Martone said, "The Diocese of Buffalo sincerely regrets the harm that has come to all victims of abuse and maintains a zero-tolerance policy for any form of abuse. Because the lawsuit AB 136 Doe vs. Diocese of Buffalo currently is pending litigation, we cannot comment specifically on this case."
If our mandate as a station is to be a voice for the voiceless, I couldn't sit by and not be a voice, because there are people without a voice right now.
And to urge the diocese, 4 years into its bankruptcy case, to stop fighting the release of clergy abuse records and to make survivors whole.
To move forward, you've got to lay everything out. And you've got to start from a clean slate. And until everything is out there, it's not a clean slate. It's a dirty history. You don't want to be the story, but I've just got to start owning and living my truth. That's the only way you get past it.
Now, the message Pete wants to get out to people is this doesn't just happen to quote-unquote troubled kids. It can happen, in fact, to anyone. And he's urging people who have suffered abuse by priests, teachers, coaches, or anyone to come forward and speak up, to seek the help, possibly of a counselor, and to know that there are many people out there who are willing to support you.
Thank you, Charlie. And Pete also says that he doesn't want people to feel sorry for him.
He wants people to take strength from his story and feel empowered to tell their own story. Well, Channel 2 News at 6 returns right after the break with a full look at your forecast for the rest of the week.